Welcome back to Talk Jamaica here in Talk Jamaica Radio. We are streaming live on www.talkjamaicaradio.com and we are streaming at caribradium.com. I'm Ralston Chamberlain and my co-host this week is Ricardo Brooks. Listeners, last Thursday, Leader of Opposition Jamaica Labour Party, Andrew Holness, appointed a new 19-member council of shadow spokespersons. Andrew Holness, who is the Leader of Opposition and Minister of Development and Defense, he named Audley Shaw the Finance and Planning Minister. His deputy spokesperson is Favour Horace Chang, is in charge of water and housing, and he will be assisted by Marlon Morgan. The Deputy Speaker, Mike Henry, returns to speak on transport and works. Edmund Bartlett retains foreign affairs and foreign trade in the name of Susan Leslie Bailey. Derek Smith continues to speak on national security and will be ably assisted by his deputy spokesperson, Pernell Charles Jr. J.C. Hutchinson will still speak on agriculture and fisheries, while his deputy spokesperson will be Marlon Morgan. Desmond McKenzie is still responsible for local government. Shahini Robinson retains responsibility for tourism, while Delano Feverite has been appointed her deputy spokesperson. Carl Samuda retains industry, investment and commerce, and Dr. Wheatley also retains and digital society portfolio, and he will be assisted by Floyd Green.
Pernell Charles is for Social Security, while Delroy Chuck has oversight for Justice and the Attorney General portfolios. Chuck's deputy is Kent Gammon. Roger Spencer will speak on Labour and Social Service. Senator Alexander Williams, Land and the Environment. Senator Robert Montague, the GLP chairman, will speak to Mining and Energy, and he'll be assisted by Dwayne Smith. Olivia Grange will be the spokesperson on Information, Sports, Entertainment and Culture. Her deputy is to be Harold Malcolm. Senator Kamina Johnson will speak to Education and Youth. Her deputy is Robert Morgan. Finally, Senator Marlene Malahoo Ford has responsibility for health and healthy lifestyle, while her deputy spokesperson is Gillette Cuthbert. The shadow cabinet was last reshuffled in November of 2013 following the JLP leadership challenge to the incumbent leader by Audley Shaw. To help us pull apart and assess the newly formed JLP shadow cabinet, we're joined online by Jermaine Nairne, policy researcher at the University of the West Indies and lecturer at the University College of the Caribbean. Floyd Green is the newly appointed Deputy Spokesperson for Science, ICT and Digital Society portfolio, and he heads the JLP's young affiliate arm, Generation 2000. Welcome, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for having us.
Not a problem. Jeremy, let me start with you. Your initial assessment of the new shadow cabinet.
Well, when I look at the persons that Mr. Holness has proposed, I think it is a good mix of women and men and young and old. I know some people may have an issue with so many older persons being a part of the shadow cabinet, but the reality that the JLP faces is that they have to work with the people that they have in Parliament.
Okay. But let me ask you this, Jermaine. When we what do you make of the notion that is being put forward about a Mike Henry? He has been brought back to speak on transport and works. Do you believe that this is an attempt by Mr. Holness to unify seemingly a
Well, I'll say two things about the inclusion of Mr. Henry in the shadow cabinet. The first thing is that in my last interview on this program, I recall saying that a party has to first win an election before it can form the government. And I think many people have forgotten that Mr. Henry is a heavyweight in the party. And without him, the party would have unnecessary ground to cover. The last thing the party needs right now is for the constituents in Clarendon especially to withdraw their support. That's the first thing. So that's coupled with the unity issue. The message must be sent to central Jamaica in particular, where a lot of the support lies, that, hey, we're including your heavyweight in this. The second thing is that Mike Henry has an enormous amount of experience that the party can still use at this time. And so if it intends to form the next government, it needs to show that they're willing to include people with experience. So I think we all know that Mr. Henry is on his way out.
Okay, Floyd, congratulations on your appointment to the Shadow Cabinet as a deputy spokesperson. Science, ICT, and Digital Society, a critical area for the nation's development. What will be your priority in terms of policy formation?
Well, let me say a few things. I want to agree with Jermaine in relation to, I think what the leader has been able to do is to bring in an excellent mix of experienced heads along with youth in relation to the new Shadow Cabinet and new council of spokesperson. I think it's very important because one thing, of course, you want to the new faces, but they also need to be guided. I think one of the strengths of the Labour Party right now is that it does have persons in there who have done very well in government, in ministries, in their portfolios, and who can help guide some of us, the younger ones, into policy formulation and what is soon expected in a Shadow Cabinet account of spokesperson. In relation to ICT and digital technology, one thing that the leader has said and made it very clear in the press conference is that every area that he appoints, what he wants is to see how we tie into the growth agenda. Right now, what Labour Party has to be looking at in a real way is how we can grow the Jamaican economy. And I think through ICT and digital technology, that is a tremendous opportunity in relation to growth and in relation to getting young people and facilitating our young entrepreneurs into fields of endeavor that one they can be highly trained for and that they can really get a lot of remuneration for. One of the things that we're doing next week is that I'm meeting with Dr. Andrew Holness, who you know is the opposition spokesperson in the area, and we're going to be looking at the full gamut of policy initiatives, both those that were started on the Jamaica Labour Party and those that have been pronounced now by the current minister. There are some issues that are outstanding that we will be speaking on, and that Dr. Whitley has been speaking on, that we will be taking up the fight. One of them that already comes to mind is the issue of number portability. And I think we all know now how necessary that is in our modern day society, and it's something that has been promised for a very long time but has been delayed time and time again. And I think we will be continuing to keep the eye on the government in relation to a set time frame for when we can have number portability, and for them not to resign that it must be full number portability, which includes not only mobile phones but also landlines. I think the other issue that we haven't heard much on, the issue that the opposition has truly championed, and that's about the providers blocking voice over internet content, VoIP. The question is what is happening there. The OER has said that they would have done a report. The first reports coming out of the OER since that time, but yet still we have not heard a true report on why is it that these providers are being blocked. Is it illegal? And how do we plan to treat it as a government and the issues it has in relation to net neutrality? So those are some of the things in brief that we'll be looking at.
I want to come back to Jermaine Nairne, policy research at the University of the West Indies, because you made the statement that Mike Henry had to be included because he's a heavyweight in the JLP. But what do you make of the argument that James Roberts, who is one would consider a heavyweight over in St. Thomas, was excluded from the mix?
Well, I think the party leader, and this is my assumption, I don't have any knowledge, the party leader is probably approaching it with an abundance of caution. I read in the paper that it may be attributed to the U.S. rescinding his visa and for the court case that is pending. But I'm not sure I would make a big deal about it. If we look at Mr. Vaz, for example, I'm sure when the court case is finished, Mr. Vaz may very well be included in that council. I mean, a lot can be said about Mr. Vaz, but among that which can be said is that he's a hard worker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. I want to, and then Mr. Tufton has been brought back into the fold. Why would he not then be given a portfolio ministry, a portfolio to oversee, given that Mr. Holness is giving us the impression that the division is now fixed and there's unity within the party?
Well, as far as Mr. Tufton is concerned, I think if we were to look at the entire council, all the main spokespersons are members of parliament. And so he would want to maximize on Dr. Tufton's voice. And since Dr. Tufton doesn't currently have a seat, I imagine that he would want to wait. But certainly, if the government were to form the next election, I imagine that Mr. Tufton would be given a portfolio. Failing that, the party would be doing the country a disservice.
Mm-hmm. Floyd, let me ask you, there have been concerns that the GLP has not been a viable opposition. In fact, I did some commentary just now about this idea that Andrew Holness has been weak. How do you respond to that kind of criticism? Floyd? Nairne, let me throw it to you. How do you respond to the criticism that the Labour Party has gotten, that it's a weak and not a viable opposition?
Well, I'm not sure the party has done sufficient work to show that it is a viable opposition. I think it has been concerned too much about the infighting, and I spoke about that in our last interview. And so I think this now is a new page that has been turned. Certainly people now feel as if, okay, we are moving away from the disunity, and whether or not it is fully sorted out, some amount of progress has been made. So we look forward to see exactly what will happen in the coming months.
Okay. Do you anticipate... Floyd, are you back with us now? All right, Nairne, I'm asking, do you anticipate that another leadership challenge could be a possibility?
I don't. I think the party has learned its lesson, and if another challenge were to be mounted, the party would certainly be shooting itself in the leg.
But what Jermaine...
Okay. Go ahead.
What Jermaine then is, let us say then the PNP in it go ahead and call the local government election in June, as the Gen Secretary has alluded, and Mr. Holness was not able to garner enough parish council that would send a message that he is indeed able to lead the party into an election victory. Do you then think that his leadership would come up for questioning?
I think it would come up for questioning if he were to lose, one, the upcoming local government elections, and two, the general elections thereafter. If he were to lose both of them, I think then a lot of questions would be raised.
Mm-hmm. Floyd, some political observers have questioned the wisdom of appointing Senator Malahoo Fort to speak and shadow health, given that she has no medical training. How do you respond to that?
I don't think that medical training would be a precursor to be appointed as a Minister of Health. Mm-hmm. If you look at our Westminster model, the ministers are the spokespersons, but the ministers are really in charge of policy direction. And we normally have very good teams at ministries led by the permanent secretary that are normally adequately trained in the field of study in relation to each area. What you're supposed to do as a minister, one expects, is to have clear policy and to really marshal the team to ensure that the job is getting done. I think what we've seen time and time again is that regardless of training, is that we have leaders who are not leading and are not marshalling the team. So regardless of our training in law, I think Senator Malahoo Fort would be an excellent minister in any field of endeavor. I think what the leader is doing now is putting that to the test by putting her as opposition spokesperson. And what you have seen, she has hit the ground running. I think directly out of our press conference, Malawi not only had statements on issues facing the Maypen Hospital, but I think herself went and did some touring of Maypen and Mandeville. So the reality, it is not about training in the area, because we've had doctors who may have not done so well, and we have doctors who have done well as ministers of health. I think what is important is the skill set in relation to leadership and really a willpower to get the job done. And I'm very confident, and I think Jamaica is very confident that Senator Malawi will get the job done and will be an excellent representative, especially in relation to advocacy. And in an area like health, which is really at the verge of complete crisis, I think we need a strident voice. And she has shown through her time in the Senate that she is a very, very strident voice. And it's the same way I feel about Senator Johnson Smith in education. She has not been trained as an educator. But I think from her advocacy in the Senate, she has really distinguished herself as one of those persons who is very thorough, who takes her job very seriously, and who is very passionate about representing the Jamaican people. I think all those things would really do us well in relation to how they will stack up and how they will serve as on the team of council spokespersons.
But let me ask you this, Floyd. What do you make of the criticism that came out of the JLP, that the poor handling of the Chick V issue by Dr. Fenton Ferguson was part of the fact that he was not a medical doctor but a dentist? Because
I never heard that as any formal criticism coming out of the Labour Party. I will be honest, you will hear people on the ground say that. But I think if he had done it well, nobody would have said it's because he's a doctor or it's because he's a dentist, right? I think people were just very disgusted at his abysmal handling of the Chick V scenario. And people were saying, boy, it must be because he's a dentist and not a real doctor, because a lot of people thought he was a real doctor. So I think they had given him some credibility because they heard the prefix doctor before his name. But it makes no difference. You know, it never took, and let's put this in context. 2 years before the Chick V scenario came to a crisis in Jamaica, the PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, had a conference in Jamaica that outlined a full training program in relation to Chick V. They also outlined the steps that should be taken. They said we should have simulations at hospitals like the Bustamante Children's Hospital. They said we should start training our medical teams. We should start a public education campaign. No, you don't need a doctor for those steps. It only took willpower and just a sense of proper management. What we see time and time again, I think what the history of Jamaica has shown is that it's not that we've had ministers, some of them who are unaware in terms of their areas, but we've also had ministers who are just very poor at managing, and ministers who largely put politics before governance. So they are much more concerned about winning an election than they are about representing people. So I think that is the point we have to get to. Right? I have spoken about reform in terms of our systems of governance, and it is important. And there are some constitutional reforms that I would want to see in relation to maybe a cabinet that isn't chosen from a member of parliament. But when it comes to the system that we now have in place, if I am to choose a slate of spokespersons or a slate of ministers, I would not necessarily look for specific training in the area, but look for people who you are sure have the commitment, have the experience sometimes in terms of directly related to the area, but also in terms of managing people and ensuring driving policy from talk to action. I think that is what is very, very important.
All right. All right. Final question to you both, starting with you, Jermaine. What does this new shadow cabinet need to do to position the Labour Party as a viable government in waiting?
Would you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, what does the shadow cabinet have to do in terms of going forward to ensure that the Jamaican people see it as a viable government in waiting?
Well, I think like all shadow cabinets, they have to ensure that they're vocal. They have to ensure that they are seen. And a big part of it is not just being seen in terms of criticizing, but they must be able to propose alternatives to what exactly the government is doing. And on that matter, I think an opportunity might have been missed for the opposition leader. I know he says that this is not the cabinet that would be in place. But if it is that the opposition is government in waiting, then I think he should have done two things. One, given that the portfolio of industry, investment and commerce is so critical to the country right now, especially within the current fiscal space, I think it would have been good for the leader of the opposition to demonstrate to Jamaicans that great focus would be placed there. That's one. The second thing is that given that Mike Henry is on his way out, right, it would have been good to see a deputy being assigned to him for the way forward.
All right, Floyd?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we hold the government to account. I think what Jamaican people really want to see is government that is accountable and that not only promises but delivers. And I think part of the government's role is to ensure that where the government is falling short, that it is really brought to book. I think that is very, very important. So we will have to ensure that we communicate effectively with the people of Jamaica so that the message is out there. But also, it's not just about criticism. It has to be advocacy on points the government are missing completely, and also putting forward new ideas or putting forward new initiatives or reminding the people of certain things that the Labour Party wanted to have gotten done if it had remained in government and plans to get done. Clearly, people they don't want to see as opposition. And I think one thing that the leader has made clear is that we're truly not opposition. We're really waiting to form the next government. I think we have to start positioning now so that people are confident that when the Labour Party takes back over, we will see the sort of return to the sort of growth and the sort of vision that can really drive this country forward and give young people hope again. I think that will be part of our role to really give young people of Jamaica hope again, not only in the Labour Party, but in politics, but also in Jamaica.
All right. Jermaine Nairne is a policy analyst at University of the West Indies. Floyd Green, newly appointed deputy spokesperson for the Jamaica Labour Party and president of GTK. Thank you so very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anytime.
Thank you.
All right.
Capture all of life's greatest moments with Alan's film.